Well, welcome to New Covenant United Methodist Church. My name is Tinker. I'm glad you could join us today.
Our reading for today is from Luke 15. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming to listen to him, and the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them a parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and traveled to a distant country. And there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare, and here I am dying of hunger? I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran out and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to the father, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now the elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I've been working like a slave for you. I've never disobeyed your command. Yet you have given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours come back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' And the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours.' So he had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found." The word of God for the people of God.
Praise be to God. We'll just make do. So when we moved here 3.5 years ago, it's hard to believe, 3.5 years, 2 of that in COVID. And when we moved here 3.5 years ago, of course, one of the things we wanted to make sure we did for fun was go to Durango. Not only was everybody telling us, but we'd been there before. Loved Durango, loved that area, the $1 Million Highway. So we headed to Durango. Did you just lose me?
I turned you down.
Oh, okay. I just figured it would go that way. All right, so everybody can hear me okay now. All right. So we went up to Durango, and just as we got into town, one of the first things we saw was a young man who's probably about 19, 20, 21 years old, on the street corner, in some raggedy clothes, obviously looked like he was homeless, holding up a sign that said, "We'll work for art supplies."
Oh.
Now, of course, the sign caught our attention because we'd never seen that one before. And I spent 20 years working in downtown Houston, and I thought I'd seen all of the signs. But also his age surprised us. Most of the homeless I've seen in Albuquerque and the Houston area have all been in their 50s. And so it just really surprised me to see someone so young that was homeless. So I'd asked around a little bit. I don't remember if it's someone in the congregation or someone else here in town, but I asked around and I said, it's kind of odd, but we saw quite a few actually, younger homeless people in Durango. And someone told me they were trust fund babies. Well, I'd never heard of a trust fund baby, and I had to look it up and see what it was. Well, what it is that there are children that when they were born, their parents set up a trust fund that earned interest, and when they turned either 18 or 21 or whatever the guideline was that the parents set for them, they would then give that trust fund to their now grown child. The average trust fund is $235,000. Now, when you are 18, is that not like $10 million? I mean, that you can live off that forever. $235,000, and that's a lot of money. So I don't know, though, this kid's story. I don't know if he was a trust fund baby. But let's make up a story for him today. Let's tell his backstory. And you're going to help me a little bit. He needs a name.
Hector.
And we went through this last night. They were trying to name him Ralph and Randolph and Charles. Thank you. Charles. Charles needs an older brother. He's not going to be named Hector. Alex. All right. He's from a far country, remember? So we need somewhere off the East Coast. Pick a state.
Georgia.
Georgia. And then I need a number between 249 and 251. 250, thank you. That was the exact number that I had in mind. So 250. So we're going to say Charles is going to get a trust fund of $250,000. And his brother Alex, we're going to say, is 3 years older than him. All right? And they are from Georgia, the Peach State. They're from Georgia. So let's tell this story. So we have Charles, who is the younger of the two brothers. Their dad works in construction, but his older brother, Alex, is perfect. He's decided he wants to go to West Point, and so he is doing everything right. He's making perfect grades in school, he has perfect behavior, and he's on the football team, he's the captain of the team, he's the quarterback. Everybody just adores Alex, the older brother. Don't you hate being the younger child when your older sibling is perfect in school? Well, that's the case for poor Charles. Charles comes in behind his older brother, and when he gets the same teachers, they always assume he's as smart as his brother, as good as his brother, and as athletic as his brother. But he's not. Or he doesn't believe he is anyway. And so he feels very frustrated. And it's not any better when he gets home. Because he can just see his dad just swell up in pride every time Alex starts talking about some winning touchdown or something he did in school. Or when his dad's telling the neighbors about what he did. And so Charles just feels hurt. Very hurt. That his brother is so perfect and he's not. And of course, by the time he turns 15, he's thinking about becoming very rebellious because he's got all this anger just bottled up. And he's ready to just kind of explode. But just as he's kind of hitting that point where he's thinking about being, back talking his dad, which he's never done, his older brother turns 18 and almost at the same time graduates from high school. And when Alex, the older brother, graduates, his dad gives Alex a $250,000 trust fund. Now that makes Charles sit up. Wow. $250,000. Now sadly, Alex doesn't get into West Point, but he does get into one of the Ivy League schools. And so he takes his $250,000 and he buys a junker car to get himself to and from. And of course we know $250,000 isn't going to go very far at one of the Ivy League schools. But he enrolls and he's got money and he's got scholarships, and so he's working himself through school. And while he's there, he meets a beautiful girl that just adores him, and it looks like maybe she's going to be the one. In the meantime, though, Charles, and we're going to pretend that's us, so we are Charles. We have decided to be as good as we can be between now and 18. But we know what we're going to do when we turn 18. We're out of here. Sick of living in your brother's shadow. And man, I can live forever on that money. When I turn 18, I am just going to tell my dad to his face what I think of how I've been treated, and I am out of here. So you turn 18, and there's a party, confetti, but no check. Now you're kind of getting hurt. What's going on here? But well, maybe they're going to wait until everybody leaves and then they're going to give me the check. Everybody starts cleaning everything up. Still no check. Then you notice parents are getting ready for bed. Still no check. So you finally go and you knock on the door and they say, come in, and you walk in and you say, now, I noticed that you gave Alex a check when he graduated, when he turned 18. I was just curious why I'm not getting a check. Of course, you're inside seething, knowing, because it's just your brother's so perfect. And obviously, it's just more proof that your parents don't love you. But your dad says, well, you haven't even graduated from high school yet. When you graduate, we'll give you the check, and then you can use it to go to college or set up a business or whatever it is you have planned. Well, it irritates him. So much so that all of that anger he's just had all this time just boils out, and he tells his dad everything he's been feeling. Dad, I hate you. I wish you were dead. And I'm leaving. I'm 18. I don't have to stay here anymore. I'm out of here. And if you want to give me the money, great. If not, I'll just go be homeless and it'll be your fault. Well, surprisingly, Dad decides to go ahead and give him the money if that's what he's determined to do. He tries to talk him into staying, at least graduate, but he's not going to do it. So instead, you take your check and you leave. Now, Georgia's a fine state, but Colorado has legalized marijuana. And so you're thinking, I need to go to Colorado. And so you decide on $250,000, man, I'm going to live forever on that, so I'm going to take $50,000 of that, I'm going to buy me a nice sports car. But I've still got $200,000 to live off of. And you do some math, and you got $1,000 for rent, $1,000 for food, and the electricity, and your cell phone, and your car insurance, and then $1,000 you're going to take art lessons because you've always been good at art. And you're thinking, if I have $200,000 and I'm spending $3,000, I can go 5.5 years on my $200,000. And in 5.5 years, you just know you're going to be the next Picasso if you take lessons. And so then you can just start selling your paintings and live off of that. So you get to Durango, and guess what you find out? You cannot live off $1,000 for rent in Durango. Now, a one-bedroom apartment in Durango costs $2,000. Might be $1,000 in Georgia, but it's $2,000 in Durango. Well, now you've got to modify everything a little bit. So you do some more math and you figure, well, I'll take fewer art lessons, I'll reduce that to 500 and then I'll 2,000, and so anyway, you figure out, well, $4,000. $4,000, that'll still get me 4 years. 4 years. That's still plenty of time to become the next Monet or Rembrandt or Picasso and start selling all your artwork. Well, then you start hanging out with some friends. You start meeting some people and hanging out with them, and one of the things they do, you get there in the winter, is they snowboard. So you've got to go buy all the latest gear and then buy a pass. Then winter turns to summer, and all your friends now go four-wheeling. Well, guess where your sports car will not go? So you decide to trade it in. Of course, you lose money on the trade-in and buy yourself a Jeep so that you can go four-wheeling with all your friends. I mean, you've got all the money in the world, so why not? Surprisingly, and not so surprisingly, your money only lasts 18 months. And the next thing you know, you have none. And you haven't been taking your art lessons like you meant to. You haven't been doing much art, actually. But you're still sure that if you can just now get some art supplies, you could still make it. Hence, you find yourself standing on the street corner with a sign that says, "We'll work for art supplies." Well, sadly, no one gives you art supplies, but you do get some money and some food, and so you start living out of your Jeep because you can't afford your apartment anymore, and things just are not going well. You're getting dirtier, you're not doing well, and so you decide you need to get a job. And one day, as you're scrummaging for food out of the back of the trash can at Burger King, you see a help wanted sign. Now you go in and you talk to them about the job, but of course you're in raggedy clothes, you don't smell good, and so they just politely tell you that they just filled the position. Well, you notice next day and the day after the sign's still up. But you realize what the problem probably is, and so you go down to Goodwill with the last little bit of change you have, and you buy one set of nice clothes, and you go down the river and you clean yourself up, and you spend the last bit you have and go get a haircut. And you go back to Burger King, and you interview, and they go ahead and hire you, and you get to flip bacon. That's your new job, flipping bacon. Unfortunately, having a minimum wage job doesn't work out so well because now you've got to do laundry, so you've got to go to the laundromat, and you need a cell phone, so you feel like you're not getting ahead. You're still not in a position where you can get an apartment. And so you live in your Jeep. Then one day you come out, and someone has stolen your Jeep with all your Goodwill clothes in it. It's gone. And your art supplies. They're all gone. Talking about hurt. But let's talk about what's been happening with Alex all this time, the older brother. What's been going on in his life? So he heads to his Ivy League school. We'll just say Yale. Why not? He heads to Yale. He's doing okay. He's got that girl he really likes. She really likes him. He's making decent grades, getting through school. But then, Mom has a stroke. And as he's talking to his dad on the phone, and he comes down to visit, he realizes his dad is just falling apart. He didn't realize how much of a difference it made to have Mom taking care of all the stuff Dad was struggling with. And so he talks to Dad a little bit. He says, "Well, Dad, what about if I drop out of school and I come here?" "Oh, no, don't do that." So, "Well, Dad, I can go to school here. I don't have to go to Yale. I can go to school here. I'm out of trust fund money anyway. I'll just go to school locally." So he comes down, he starts going to school locally, but he realizes his dad is not taking care of the construction company. He's just let it fall by the wayside. The employees, they're not getting new bids, the employees are just coming and going when they feel like it because no one's supervising them. So he drops out of school and he starts taking care of his dad's construction business. And he doesn't really like construction. It's not what he dreamed of doing. It's not what he wanted to do. He's already had his heart broken once because he didn't go to West Point. Now it's broken again because he's doing construction. But he feels like it's the thing to do. Well, believe it or not, his girlfriend follows him. She follows him back to Georgia. And they end up getting married. And she wants to go do things on the weekend. But he wants to spend the weekend taking care of mom and dad. And so that's what he ends up doing every weekend, is going home to take care of mom and dad. So let's go back to Charles. Charles is in Durango. He's now without a Jeep. Can't keep his job anymore. One day as he's walking down the street, he looks over and he sees some people doing construction. And he remembers his childhood, and he remembers back to a time that he was in the garage with his dad, and he was building something, and he knew it didn't look good, but his dad had swelled up with pride and told him how wonderful it was. And he realized in that minute that he was the one that had been comparing himself to his older brother, not his dad. It wasn't his dad after all. His dad was proud of him too. And he just starts crying. Now he's only got a few minutes left on his little flip cell phone, because he's lost his fancy cell phone, and he's down to his little flip cell phone from Cricket, with some minutes on it. And so he flips it open and he calls home. He hasn't talked to them in over 2 years, close to 3. He calls them and he's crying so hard, his dad cannot even understand what he's saying. Finally, his dad says, "I'll just get you a plane ticket and you can come home." And finally, he manages to tell Dad, "I can't even get to the airport." His dad said, "Well, I'll wire you some money and you can get home." So he gets on a plane and starts heading home. Dad, of course, is super excited. He just couldn't be any more excited. He's got one son in town with him, and now his other son's coming home, and he's so excited. And he realizes, though, you know what? When Charles gets home, we need to make sure he's going to be okay. And for the first time in a long time, he gets out the books for his construction business, and he starts looking at them and saying, well, what do we make? And can I take some of that money, and can I get Charles set up to maybe go to the local junior college so that he can turn his life around? Of course, Alex walks in as his dad's all excited and working in the books and says, "Dad, what you doing? What are you so excited about?" So he tells him, he said, "Your brother is coming home." And as he's coming home, I'm looking at the books and I'm thinking that I could scrape off another $200,000 here and give it to your brother to go to college. Boy, are you happy with that? Boy, it makes you mad. So sure enough, Alex is furious. And he tells his dad, "You need to tell me, I've given up my dreams of going to an Ivy League school. I give up my weekends. I give up the career I wanted to do to stay home with you and take care of you and Mom. And you haven't so much as given me a dime since that original $250,000. And now you're going to turn around and give my brother, who did nothing, who wasted his money on snowboards and, whatever, Jeeps and whatever. You're going to give him all this money. I'm the one who faithfully worked and took care of you, and he did nothing. He hasn't even called you or talked to you, and you're going to give him money and me nothing. Well, by now y'all know what story I'm telling. Since Grace read it for us too. Yeah, it's the prodigal son. And what a beautiful story it is, right? How dad just opens his arms and receives his son back after all he's done. I think that all of us have points in our lives where we can kind of identify with the prodigal son. You know, we've gone out and messed up and gone wayward, but we know that God will open his arms and receive us. I mean, we can start singing Amazing Grace. You know, it's just grace upon grace upon grace. But you know, this story actually has more than one part to it. And it's important we listen to all of the parable and not just the prodigal son. Because this parable was told to who? The Pharisees and some scribes. And after they were told this parable, they were angry at Jesus because they believed he was telling the parable about them. Do you think they would be angry if they thought they were the prodigal son? No, they realized what Jesus was talking about is they were the older brother. They were the older brother that was angry that they had been so good, and yet God was willing to bless just anybody. Just anybody. Somebody that's gone off and done everything wrong and hasn't been good, God still blesses. God still loves everyone. So that's why they were angry. And that's an important lesson for us, is to remember that there is more to this parable. That other part of that parable is that we are not to be like that older brother. To resent other people for being blessed. To resent other people for getting things we feel we deserve. But there's also one more part to this parable. And that's the dad. And we think of the dad as God, opening and receiving us when we come in. But I think what we need to realize in this parable is that God is challenging us to go from being the older brother to being dad. How many of us have had people in our lives that have just sucked us dry? I mean, everything we had to give them, every bit of love, relationship, all the resources we had to give them, and they have taken them and then walked away on us. Broken our trust, broken our relationship, just torn us up. And we just feel like we have nothing left. No matter if they come back or not, we have nothing left. And yet the Father opened his arms to receive the Son back. And God is asking us, I am giving you all this grace, and all I ask is that you turn around and also open your arms and give grace to everyone around you. If we don't, if we're not willing to give the kind of grace that we receive, we become just as lost as that prodigal son was. Every bit is lost. So it's important for all of us to realize that part of being a child of God is that we also turn around and love all of God's other children. So it's important for us to remember that, and I challenge all of us this week to think about that, to think about, am I being like the older brother, or am I being like the Father and opening my arms and receiving everyone in love? Amen.